For nearly 2 decades, Natalee Holloway's disappearance remained one of the most haunting, unsolved cases in modern history. Now, the truth has finally been solved, and the truth is far worse than anyone ever imagined. Investigators have uncovered a disturbing chain of events driven by obsession, deception, and unimaginable cruelty. What was once a heartbreaking mystery has become a chilling reality, forcing the world to confront the nightmare behind Natalee's disappearance. In May 2005, Natalee Holloway, an 18-year-old honors student from Mountain Brook High School in Alabama, traveled to the Caribbean island of Aruba. She was part of a senior class trip along with 124 of her classmates to celebrate their graduation. The trip was meant to be a fun and carefree getaway, a final moment of freedom before they all returned home to start their futures. For Natalee, that future was filled with promise. She had earned a full scholarship to the University of Alabama and was planning to major in pre-med. Her ultimate goal was to become a doctor. Natalee was known for being bright, hardworking, and full of life. Everyone who knew her described her as kind, responsible, and highly motivated. But what was supposed to be a joyful and unforgettable trip quickly turned into a nightmare. On the night of May 30, 2005, just hours before the group was scheduled to fly back to the United States, Natalee disappeared without a trace. That evening, she had gone out with friends at Carlos and Charlie's, a popular nightclub in the capital city of Aranestad. It was the final night of the trip, and spirits were high. Sometime during the night, Natalee was seen leaving the club with 3 young men: Joran Vanderloot, a 17-year-old Dutch honors student who lived on the island, and 2 brothers, Deepak and Sadish Kalpo.
Articles about this man. He's the Playboy suspect. 17-year-old Joran Vandersloot, implicated in the disappearance of an American woman from the island of Aruba exactly 5 years earlier. According to the story they first told police, the 3 claimed they had dropped Natalee off safely at her hotel, but Natalee never returned to her room. No one ever saw her alive again. The next morning, panic began to spread among her classmates and trip organizers when Natalee failed to show up for the airport departure. Her luggage was still packed in her room, untouched. Her passport was found inside. It was immediately clear that she had not planned to leave on her own. Something had gone terribly wrong. Natalee's disappearance quickly became one of the most haunting and heartbreaking mysteries in recent memory. And when the truth about what had really happened to Natalee finally surfaced, it would prove to be even more horrifying than anyone had imagined. But first, the world witnessed one of the largest search efforts in Aruba's history.
Local police, volunteers, residents, and even members of the FBI quickly commenced a search for Natalee after her friends reported her missing. Teams covered beaches, checked diving sites, combed through forests, and drove along remote roads. Planes flew over the island, searching from the air. Boats scanned the waters around Aruba. Tracking dogs were brought in to follow any possible trail. But despite the scale of the search and the number of people involved, no trace of Natalee was found. Not a single item she had with her was recovered. Her phone, her purse, even her shoes were gone. There were no signs of a struggle. No witness came forward with solid information. No surveillance footage revealed anything useful. The only clue was the 3 people Natalee was last seen with: Joran Vanderloot and brothers Deepak and Sadish Kalpo. All 3 were quickly identified and brought in for questioning. They initially claimed they had dropped Natalee off safely at her hotel, but when police pressed them, their stories began to change. One said they had taken her to the beach. Another suggested they left her in the car. Their timelines were inconsistent, their answers didn't match. Investigators became increasingly suspicious. Just days later, all 3 were arrested, but with no physical evidence and no eyewitnesses to confirm any version of events, authorities were forced to let them go. Over the next 2 years, they would be arrested and released again multiple times. Still, prosecutors never had enough solid proof to charge them. In 2007, a judge ruled that there was no evidence Natalee had died due to violence. Yet, the suspicion never went away. Meanwhile, Joran's behavior became even more disturbing. He denied knowing what happened. Then, in 2008, he told an undercover Dutch journalist that Natalee had died in his presence and that he had disposed of her body. It was a shocking claim, but soon after he took it back, saying he had lied to impress the reporter. The confession was fake, he insisted. Investigators were left with nothing they could rely on. Each new twist in the story only deepened the confusion and heartbreak. Every lie reopened the wounds for Natalie's family. Her parents were devastated. Her mother, Beth Holloway, became the public face of the search. She refused to give up. She traveled back and forth to Aruba, held press conferences, and spoke directly to the media. Her determination was unshakable. At one point, the family offered a $1 million reward for any credible information that would lead to Natalie's return. They hoped money would break someone's silence. But no new information came. As months turned into years, the investigation lost momentum. No remains were found, no forensic evidence pointed to a suspect. The case stalled completely. The authorities had nothing concrete, and the Holloway family had no closure. They were trapped in a cycle of grief and unanswered questions. The pain of not knowing became unbearable. They were left holding on to hope that never seemed to lead anywhere. But as the Holloways would one day come to learn, the truth behind what happened to Natalee was far more disturbing than anything they had imagined. As investigators struggled to uncover solid evidence, the void left behind was quickly filled with speculation. And they were relentless.
Most people eventually began to believe that there was much more to the story than what had been shared with the public. What started as quiet whispers of a possible cover-up soon grew louder over time. Suspicion began to fall heavily on the Aruban authorities, especially Yiren's father, who was serving as a judge on the island at that time. From the very beginning, several details did not make any sense. The Kalpoe brothers and Yiren were arrested early in the investigation, but they were released surprisingly quickly. Their stories were inconsistent, and they changed with each telling. Despite these clear contradictions, the authorities never seemed to fully investigate the gaps in their statements. To many, it appeared as though someone in a position of power might have been protecting them or trying to quietly make the entire case disappear. As time went on and the investigation lost momentum, new and unsettling theories began to spread. Some people no longer believed Natalee had lost her life on the island. Instead, they feared she may have been abducted. There were disturbing rumors that Yiren had ties to the illegal deeds. This led many to wonder if Natalee had been taken alive. Some believed she might still be out there somewhere, held against her will and unable to find a way back. Others feared she could be suffering from memory loss, no longer aware of who she was or what had happened to her. The possibility that Natalee might still be alive created a different kind of suffering for her family. Beth Holloway, in particular, refused to give up. She held on to hope year after year. She chased every lead, no matter how small or unlikely. She was determined to keep searching for her daughter, even when the world around her moved on. But in 2010, something happened that caused even more pain for Beth. Yiren reached out to her directly. He told her that he knew where Natalee's body was. He claimed he would give her the location, but only if she paid him $250,000. What Betty did next is heart-wrenching. She did not hesitate. She believed that this might finally give her the answers she had waited so long to receive. She agreed to the payment and gave him the money. What Yiren gave her in return was not the truth, but a cruel and deliberate lie. He told her that Natalee's remains were buried beneath the foundation of a building near the Aruba Racket Club. Quickly, investigators looked into his claim. They reviewed satellite images and construction records. They discovered that no building had ever existed on that site at the time Yiren claimed. There was no foundation, no structure, and no sign of Natalee. The story was false from beginning to end. Yiren had taken advantage of Beth's grief and desperation. He had lied for money, knowing exactly how badly she needed the truth. The emotional toll this betrayal took on Beth was devastating. She had already spent years living with uncertainty. She had followed every possible lead and continued to hope through every heartbreak. Now, the man she believed was responsible for her daughter's disappearance had taken her pain and used it to harm her again. He had given her hope, taken her money, and then crushed her all over again with a heartless lie. The betrayal was more than just cruel. It left Beth with even more sorrow and more unanswered questions.
Her trust had been used against her in one of the most painful ways possible. For many years, the mystery continued to attract attention. The media, the public, and even private investigators searched for the missing pieces. Everyone had their own version of what they believed happened, but no one had the truth. The case remained one of the most talked about unsolved disappearances in the world. Still, no one could say for certain what had happened to Natalee. That changed nearly 20 years after she vanished. But when the truth finally came to light, it turned out to be more than just a sad story. It was something far more disturbing. That unsettling reality began to surface in 2012 when another young woman went through a horrifyingly similar experience.
By 2012, 7 long and painful years had gone by since Natalee's disappearance. Her case had captured the world's attention. Many followed the case closely, clinging to the hope that answers would come. However, no matter how many searches were conducted or how many people were questioned, there was still no trace of Natalee. There were no confirmed sightings. No physical evidence had ever emerged to clearly show what had happened to her. The lack of information only deepened the pain for her family. As time passed, hope began to fade. Despite holding on to the belief that Natalee might still be found, her family eventually faced a painful legal decision. In 2012, a judge in Alabama declared Natalee Holloway legally deceased. This step was emotionally devastating. It was not a conclusion her loved ones wanted to reach, but it provided some form of recognition for the loss they had endured. The ruling did not bring answers. It only confirmed what her family had feared for years. For Beth Holloway, the decision to declare her daughter dead was like officially giving up on the hope that had sustained her for so long. Then, something deeply disturbing happened. On May 30th, 2010, exactly 5 years after Natalee went missing, a young woman named Stephanie Flores was found lifeless in a hotel room in Lima, Peru. She was a 21-year-old college student who had her entire future ahead of her. Investigators quickly discovered that she had been with Joran Vanderloot, the same man who was the prime suspect in Natalee's case.